Welcome to Lead Different.
Today on Lead Different, I'm excited to welcome Derek McMonagle and Kylie Gallerani, the co-founders of Beyond the Veil Coaching. And yes, two people who are not only building a business together, but also preparing for their upcoming wedding. Derek and Kylie are a powerful example of what happens when different strengths come together with a shared mission. Derek is a two-time #1 accountability coach on the Coach.me platform, known for his results-driven approach to discipline, habits, and leadership. His journey from entrepreneurship to Catholic ministry shapes the way he helps clients reclaim focus and live with intention. Kylie brings depth, psychology, and over a decade of study in human behavior, along with years of coaching experience helping professionals build emotional resilience and sustainable growth. During our conversation, we talked about how they coach differently, how they challenge each other, and why their partnership, both personal and professional, works so well. Together, they're helping Catholic professionals replace burnout with purpose, discipline, and faith-centered leadership. Let's dive in.
Why not leadership? Why not lead different?
Welcome to Lead Different, the podcast that redefines leadership and challenges the status quo. Hosted by Daniel Dominguez, founder and CEO of Why Not Leadership. This show is your compass to becoming a better leader through the power of self-awareness. Good leaders foster teams that are engaged, empowered, and energized. Join us on this transformative journey as we equip you with the tools and insights to lead different. Get ready to challenge the ordinary and embrace self-aware leadership. This is Lead Different.
Subscribe now. Discover a new era of leadership. Lead different because great leaders change the world.
How are you, Derek and Kylie? How are you guys this morning?
We're doing great. Appreciate you having us, Dan.
Hey, I appreciate having you guys both on. I'm going to play with the screen a little bit. I think the best way is going to be for us to be this size. So listen, I said a lot. Reading through that introduction, I'm so impressed with you guys, what you guys are doing. Derek, the work that you do helping people build habits, and that's so important for somebody who's wired the way that you are, that I love that you've taken something that probably you struggled with and created a system to help people overcome that. And Kylie, on the other hand, you've coached so many people. When I'm looking at the screen, I'm looking at these two very young people, and you've already got a tremendous amount of background. I love the depth that you bring, Kylie. And of course, I would expect that. By the way, for our listeners and coaches that are listening, Kylie is a right way person. Derek's a challenge. And you even reading the introduction, you almost see that, oh yeah, Kylie has spent 6+ years studying before she dipped her toe in this, whereas Derek was probably more likely to jump right in because he knew he could help and he wanted to do it as fast as possible. So, guys, tell us a little bit about your journey. I read the introduction, but how do you get to where you are today running? And by the way, let's tell everybody you are engaged to be married very soon. And Derek's been very good about sharing on social media. When's the wedding date? And how's the planning going?
January 31st, 2026. From today, we are 33 days out, so it is right there in front of us. So it has been a fun process, and the planning has been great because Kylie has done the majority of it, and I've been a great supporter in that. But it has been going very well.
Excellent. Kylie, you agree?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's been a blast. It's not been as difficult as I anticipated, but I just say we just got to keep moving until the end.
Right. Exactly. There's so much to plan. We've been married close to 32 years, so I can barely remember that. You guys probably weren't even born when we were married, but there's so much to do. And, but I think, Derek, you mentioned it in when we were talking in the pre-show. Most important than the wedding planning is preparing for your marriage. And since you guys are working together at Beyond the Veil Coaching, there are probably additional challenges that'll come with you with your marriage and you're running your company. Tell us a little bit about what challenges have you guys had as a couple running a company together?
I think it's interesting. I almost feel like the Lord gave us a cheat code of setting us up for this point, because he allowed us to work together in ministry before we even started dating and discerning marriage and courtship and all that fun stuff. So I feel like he gave us a nice 2-year runway of actually building a friendship and being coworkers. And I tell the joke and tell Kylie all the time that I was her manager first. And so I feel like we had the opportunity of working really well together and seeing our strengths and weaknesses and understanding, how we could work well together and go through a lot of ups and downs before, we even got to this point. So I feel like for me, a lot of the challenges stemmed from our own opposites and our weaknesses in the sense. Whereas for me, I probably struggled in what I thought was high and effective communication. And to Kylie, it looked different in that sense. Whereas for me, I'm very much an internal processor. And for Kylie, she's very external. So for me, when I thought I was communicating, sitting there in silence, trying to work a problem, she wanted to be able to talk through it. So that was one of the big pieces for me, was actually understanding how do I need to properly communicate, not for my own understanding, but, for my partners in business and also in our relationship as well, too.
And then I would say on my side, Derek was right on. I remember the first thing he ever got onto me about is he wanted the inbox to be at 0 all day long. So he was like, there should be no open tabs. Everything needs to be clean, organized, and put in its spot. So I was like, okay. So we organized that really fast. But Derek just works. I've realized Derek just works at a 10x speed. I've never seen anyone work at that level of speed. And so I think initially I really wanted to work at the same speed because I wanted to keep up, but then also kind of realizing it's that's his strength and I have my own strengths, and I can get a lot done, but just not in the same capacity that he can. So
right. No, you don't operate at his speed. And we talked about that. So let me just give the listeners and the viewers a little bit of an insight into your Y operating system, so we can kind of level set. So Kylie comes to us with amazing. I love it when any kind of business has this YOS, especially the Y of right way. I know they're going to succeed. So Kylie is trust, right way, contribute. So from those of you who know the YOS discovery, she's going to want systems and processes, and she builds trust. So things she does have to be reliable, and she wants to be reliable, and she wants to make a difference. So when she pairs up with Derek, who is make sense, challenge, and trust, she is that calming force that we need in this business to make sure things get done and they get done the right way. And you sometimes probably have to push Derek to explain things to you in more detail, because he's ready to I call, Derek and I call us the ready, fire, aim people. We're going to be ready. We're going to fire. And then we're going to say, oh, where were we supposed to go? And sometimes that's great because we move fast, as you talked about, Kylie. We take action quickly, but we also want to make sure that we're doing the right thing and we're creating processes and systems so that things are repeatable. That sounded like an easy question. I kind of gave you guys a softball. Give me your biggest challenges, and you did a great job, as you're supposed to do in an interview. Is, hey, how do we talk about this as a strength? Which you guys are a very strong couple. So. Tell us about your journey here, and we'll start with you, Derek, since I've got you on the big screen. What tell us, in a short amount of time, how did you get to Beyond the Veil coaching and doing what you do today, and the history of running a 6-figure business, and then deciding to help people with their habits to be more successful?
Yeah, so I kind of fell into the coaching space, I think probably after a lot of unintentional helping throughout my life, and people sharing some things in regards to my gifts and charisms before I even actually knew what, gifts and charisms really were from the Lord. And I started my career whenever I got out of college with the Phoenix Suns in the sports business and sales world. And that's where I got a lot of my sales experience and kind of understanding how to build business and focus on outreach and lead generation and prospecting and all the fun processes that come with the the sales world. And I loved what I did. And I ended up staying in sales for a while and ended up going to a smaller firm after the Phoenix Suns and worked in technology consulting back in Pittsburgh, focused on selling cybersecurity and CRM solutions and Microsoft and all that fun stuff. And then after a short stint there, once the Lord had guided me back to Phoenix, I ended up getting my start in the property management space, which was a beautiful and fun journey. And I loved what I did, and I was very good at what I did as well. And the Lord allowed us to have beautiful success with the startup I started with, but unfortunately COVID had shut their doors. And then from there, I was unemployed for the first time ever, really trying to figure out where the Lord was guiding me next. And he led me to starting my first coaching company. So similar to how you mentioned with Kylie, you know, she had spent her entire college career and after that just being really a student of the game when it came to psychology and understanding people and temperaments and personality traits. And I had never really seen somebody that could pinpoint a person as quick as her. And for me, I more so didn't have the experience, but I just wanted to jump. I had a very high risk tolerance in that sense. And I had a lot of peace from the Lord to jump into the coaching world. And I was kind of the crazy guy that was posting 4 a.m., you know, workout videos and yelling at people on Facebook and Instagram at the time. And somebody told me one day, somebody would really pay you to do that. And so I took that statement and I ran with it and started my first coaching company back in 2020 and really focused on helping secular founders and entrepreneurs build their businesses and hold them accountable to their goals. And then simultaneously, one of my clients was the old CEO of my property management company and told me, hey, you should start your own property management company. I think you could have a lot of success. And so I did. And for the first 12 months, I had a whopping $0 that I made from that property management company and was really questioning why the Lord had guided me into it. And I was getting ready to close the doors because I just financially couldn't take care of both the coaching and the property management company because property management was really eating at my coaching profits. And so I heard about a month later in prayer that the Lord just wanted me to persevere a little bit more. And so I persevered another month and he gave us our first property, then our second, third, fourth, fifth. And then we ended up having about 75 properties in 5 different states that we ended up managing and built a really awesome company with him. And then I got to a point in April of 23 where I was in New Mexico at Monastery of Christ in the Desert. And I was on a silent retreat during Holy Week and Easter. And the Lord told me he wanted me to evangelize more in business. And that's what then led me to Young Catholic Professionals National Conference and discerning a role in ministry, and which led me to leaving my property management company, giving it to my partners, jumping into ministry, which is where I met Kylie on my first day at work and where we became friends and coworkers, and now my future spouse and business partner. And for us, as we were kind of discerning our next moves outside of ministry, we both had this deep call in our heart to take both of our coaching experience and understand how do we almost do this rightfully ordered, because we both love coaching. You know, we love big figures like Tony Robbins, but we're like, if Tony Robbins was Catholic, you know, that would be like the ultimate dream right there. And like having somebody like that with his stature and also, you know, having that type of faith background. And for us, we wanted to figure out how can we take the accountability, building habits, and do it in a Catholic lens and really with personal development oriented towards heaven. And so after some prayer and discernment regarding, you know, dating, courtship, engagement, and also our business, it all kind of came together at once, and we both got smacked in the face with the same amount of peace. And from there, the business started, the relationship started, and now we're 33 days out from being married and have been building this company together, which has been a great blessing. So that's my short synopsis, and hope it was short enough.
No, it was really good. And man, there's some questions I have. I'm going to give Kylie a chance to tell us her background, because I know people want to hear from the better looking half of the couple here. Kylie, tell us about your journey. You studied psychology. So you come at it from a different angle, probably, and you're more probably. I can see you being more methodical in your approach. But tell us how you came to coaching, and then I definitely want to hear how you guys met.
Yeah, I'd actually started a little bit younger. So my dad was a real estate agent, and he got into a real estate coaching company to have a coach so that he could be successful in real estate. So that was kind of my first introduction to coaching when I was like 10 years old. And I remember one of the things that they taught was the 4 temperaments. And so my dad came home and would like tell us about the 4 temperaments. And then he would have me start identifying who my friends were. Right. And it kind of became natural, and it almost became the first thought that I would think of, or I'd be like, oh, I'd meet them, and it would like, you know, hit me. I'm like, oh, they're this, or they're this, or they're this.
Sure.
And so that was kind of my upbringing, and we grew up a lot with like self-help kind of culture, right. A lot of self-help books. And then I went to college and had several different majors, kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and came across psychology. and it just like clicked. I remember being in psychology and I was like, I love this stuff. Almost like I was so drawn into like understanding the human person. And I loved it, but I think therapy has its place, but I was not necessarily wanting to do the therapy side of things, because I was like, I want to do on the practical of like how to move someone forward, not necessarily how to like delve so much into the wounds of the past. So, and at that time, coaching, it wasn't as popular as it is now, right? And so I would even tell people like, I want to be coach, and they're like, what is that, or what is the difference? And so
like what sport, right? And people, what do you coach, right? And I have the double whammy, Kylie. I coach track and cross country for my daughter's school, so I actually have a sports coach too. So people are always confused.
Right? Yeah, exactly. But I actually ended up starting to convert to Catholicism. I was not a Catholic growing up, so I converted to Catholicism in my early 20s. And I really had to wrestle, because I grew up with a lot of the self-help. And while there was a lot of similarities, there was also huge contradictions. And so I was like, I don't know how to wrestle with these two together. And so I ended up just stop reading self-help kind of altogether. And I just started really building up my framework of theology and trying to understand that. But at the same time, I started coming back and working with my dad and coaching real estate agents. So that's mostly where I've spent most of my time coaching, which is people who are in like autonomous industries. So they have to use a lot of discipline to do the hard stuff, which is making cold calls, which is something that they never want to do. Right. So learning to hold people accountable in that regard, and figuring out their fears around rejection, and working through all of that. So that I enjoyed that a lot. And then obviously coming to YCP and meeting Derek and being a coach there. But always just fascinated by the human person. But as I became stronger in my Catholic faith, I started to realize where the integration of kind of what I grew up with and the Catholic faith became a lot more clear. And just realizing like discipline is an aspect of it's a virtue, right? And so helping people grow in good habits is good, but also realizing that Jesus is really the only one who can root out our sins. So
nice. Very nice. Well, let's bring you both back on, because there's so much there. And I want to dig into more about incorporating faith. So one of my keynotes is on faith and leadership. I believe, and it's so great that you use the temperaments. You probably use other assessments. I use two primary ones. I use the YOS, which you guys experienced, and I use the Colby, because that gets me to figure out how people take action. I'd love to hear more about how you guys incorporate faith. I'm reading a book by Bob Shooks right now on healing wounds, right? So we, as coaches, we don't want to, we're not, as Kylie said, we don't want to get into that part of it, but how do we help people achieve their goals and keep faith? What I love about Bob's book, Be Healed, is he uses counseling, right? Which is important to heal people from their wounds or whatever their issues are, but also faith. I see you guys incorporating faith into the coaching. So how much of a part does it play, and when do you introduce it? I know you're very upfront about that you are a Catholic coaching company. So tell us about the decision to go in that direction, and then how you incorporate it. And I'll give that to either of you.
Yeah, I feel like we could probably both answer from our own framework and also together as well. Because for us working in a Catholic ministry, I think we had both been in the secular coaching space, and that was the one thing that the Lord was calling us to do specifically, was actually work with our brothers and sisters and the Catholic faith as well. And again, not to exclude our Protestant brothers and sisters as well, but we wanted to be very authentically Catholic and our beliefs, and rooted in that from a business element as well too, but also wanted to be open to serving anybody that was also interested in learning about Catholicism as well. And we wanted to really understand and answer the question of when somebody asked, like, how do you build a Catholic company, or how do you make sure you're rooted in Catholic teaching and Catholic values? And for us, it always started with prayer. So being able to, really start and end every single coaching call, session, sales call, et cetera, with prayer. And also even through our sales process and outreach, and having been a sales guy and gone through, my own unfortunate shady practices of sales in my earlier, times in life and different careers, I wanted to really understand and how do I go through a prayerful discernment process of walking somebody through actually joining our coaching company and being a part of it, because we truly believe that every single person he leads to us is definitely providential, and doesn't happen by accident. And just even some of the stories we've seen of people that have joined our coaching company has been very much at the hands of the Lord. And also with our kind of 4-pillar program that we kind of set up, we have this root sin assessment that we will take people through as they go through, our holy habits program. And then we also do a gifts and charisms assessment as well. And we put together this 90-day spiritual roadmap. And then from there, we, assign them somebody that's going to walk with them each and every day and pray with them and help them work through these things, not just in their business or in their career, but also in their personal and spiritual life as well. Because we believe that if we could help people pray more, if we could help them get to daily mass, if we could help them get to confession weekly and spend more time in adoration with Jesus, everything else in their life will follow.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Wow. Kylie, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, very well said. I'm not sure if I can top it, but I think just a little of the background too. We worked together at YCP, and kind of the whole mission of YCP was to integrate your faith in your work. And there was something about that like mission that I was really drawn to, but we coached, the concept of it was like, there was different chapters led by a president with people underneath them, and they would host events to help people learn to do this essentially. But what I realized was a lot of the presidents themselves were actually struggling with the concept. And so there's something there, like you're like, these people that are trying to do this, we're all trying to do this good mission, but nobody really knows how to do it. Like we're all kind of fighting through it together. And so I think there was a passion there of us just like trying to help each other on this road of life, but doing it in the way that we know God is calling us to, because we know if we do that, we end up living the most fulfilled life if we do it in a faith-filled way.
No, that's really good. And I love that you guys, so let's get to that story. How did you guys meet? Where did you guys meet? And what was that like? Let's get a quick, people love hearing how did you guys meet stories?
Yeah, so I always tell it where Kylie greeted me with a handshake on the first day that I met her, and from there it became a business deal versus actual romantic relationship. So it took me some time to win her over, but on my first day at YCP we met virtually first. And it was funny because I had a interesting feeling about meeting her, and while I enjoyed meeting all of my coworkers, there was something that was kind of unique about Kylie in that sense, because she had a coaching background. I saw that she was invested into personal and professional development from my Google searches that I was doing at the time, and so I was very excited to meet her virtually, which we did, and had a great conversation. And then about a week after meeting virtually, I ended up flying out to Nashville for an in-person kind of ministry team trip, and ended up meeting for person, which is where she greeted me with a handshake, and the working relationship began from there. And then it was a very organic thing through YCP as well too, because I was actually discerning another relationship at the time that I was in, and Kylie was actually somebody that was almost calling me out for that relationship as well too, and really understand like, hey, is this where the Lord is guiding you, and even helping me with my own discernment at the time as well. And then we just really built a really authentic friendship at that time. And then it got to a point where we actually were working really well together, saw a lot of the problems the same exact way, had the same and very similar vision to where we wanted the chapters to go and the chapter leaders and some of the improvements we wanted to make. And I ended up getting moved over to Kylie's team and coaching with her, and, almost moved into a manager role over her. And so we worked even closer together at that point. And then from there, we couldn't really ignore what the Lord was doing as well. I got to a point where I started to feel a lot of peace about spending the rest of my life with her very quickly. And again, when you work with somebody as well too, and work that closely with them and trying to figure out if the Lord's calling you to date them, it's kind of sticky territory and understanding how to navigate those waters. So I was really praying and discerning when the Lord would call me to almost pursue Kylie in a sense. And there were many times where I wanted to pursue Kylie that the Lord did not, want me to. And so it was very much unique and beautiful timing on his part. To the point of whenever he gave me a lot of peace to, one, start this business with her, and then two, actually discern dating and courting and, getting engaged very quickly. And I knew we weren't going to date for very long. And I think after dating for about a month, I went ring shopping. So I was very much, overwhelmed with peace that this was the woman the Lord wanted me to spend the rest of my life with. And then got the ring, and then talked to her family and proposed on Palm Sunday, and here we are. So that's Derek's side of the story.
He gives me such crap about this handshake, but I'm like, this is a natural greeting to a business relationship.
I could at least got a one arm side hug, but it was the handshake.
It's the building trust, right? Building trust.
For sure. Yeah. And that's a very common thing with people with the why of trust, right? You got to build that first.
Yeah. But I will say, I think when Derek, well, I had this, obviously I could read temperaments very easily. So I knew that Derek was a similar temperament to my dad. And I was really adamant that I did not want to marry somebody like my dad. So I think I initially had like a pretty strong wall up. But I think what was undeniable is like we got along really, really well from the beginning, and we worked really well. And I think the job that we had was challenging in certain ways. And because we did balance each other off, it was like, I really actually wanted his feedback. Like, I'm like, where do we go? What do we do? How do we solve this problem? Like, how do we? And so we kind of started developing a friendship just through and building that trust through being able to work extremely well together. So work was actually the interesting like foundation that we had, and like cultivated like a really strong friendship through that working relationship. But I certainly had a wall up. And so I ended up actually starting to date somebody else, and kind of a guy that like checked all the boxes for me. But the irony, I didn't have any peace, and it was like unexplainable. Like it was not something that you could problem solve. It was just an unexplainable lack of peace. And the irony is like with Derek, I had so much peace. It was like, if I imagined the future, I could see Derek. And then when I imagined this direction, it was like a wall. Like I couldn't, foggy. It was like foggy. I couldn't see forward. And so I kind of knew once I made that decision and went with the direction of Derek, I knew we were going all the way forward. So
I love how providential this all sounds, that you guys met, and I think the process that you guys both went through, because Derek had someone else in the wings, you had someone else, but both of them kind of led you to each other. So he mentioned you called him out on something with his other relationship. Did he kind of bring it up and you were like, well, that's probably not going anywhere? But well, tell us about that, because you've got this deep psychological background that you were probably looking at him and saying, oh dude, that's not going to work. But maybe I'm not the one either. So tell us about that.
Well, it was the first time we met. So we had met virtually, and that's why I said we kind of hit it off right away. And he kind of kept riding in my car, but he was telling me he was in a struggle spot of his relationship. And he was telling me, and of course, because I'm psychology and I want to like listen and like solve the problem. So I'm like, I'm like listening, and I'm like, this relationship is going nowhere. Like, what are you doing? And so I'm like, I don't think this is going to work. Like, I think you just need to end this relationship. And then sure enough, he didn't even tell me. I think it was like a month later, he did end up ending it, but he didn't tell me. And I found out on social media because he had commented on Emily Wilson had posted like a matchmaking post, and he commented on hers, like advertising himself essentially. And I screenshotted it and I sent it to him. I'm like, guess it didn't work out with your girlfriend.
Yes, you listened, right? That's very important that he listened. So, you mentioned you did want to marry somebody like your dad. I've heard, and you tell me, you're probably better at this. But if you've got a good dad, you end up marrying somebody like your dad, right? Because you sound like you had a great relationship with him, and though you didn't want to marry somebody like him, that's kind of like the best example you have of what a good man looks like. And like Derek's like, oh man, he checks the boxes, even though I maybe didn't want to jump in there right away. So I gave him a handshake. Tell us about, have you gotten over that? And how did Derek and your dad get along?
Oh, they get along swimmingly. Perfect. They get along just well. They're like two pieces
up on you probably, right?
Yeah. Well, I say, even though it's interesting, like how friends kind of complement each other in certain ways, and like what you look for in friends. Right. But even though like Derek is Catholic, like it's not his foundational piece that he connects with someone on. Mm-hmm. Usually it's like sports or business. Like if they have a sports or business lead, he's all in the game. And so because my dad was a business person, and obviously Derek's a business person, they just like connect super, super well.
Yeah, and Derek, I want to bring you back up because you did mention, if we're trying to work with people of faith, and that's really what I look for. I think primarily Catholic, but if you're a person of faith, I definitely want to work with you. Our Protestant brothers and sisters bring a lot to the table, and when you have, I did this research. I just start, if you want to call it research, I Googled about 70% of the world believes in God, and about half of those people believe in the same God that we do. And about half of those people are Catholic. So we have a big market to begin with. But Kylie mentioned how you connect with people, whether it's sports or business. You had a job with the Phoenix Suns, so that's always an easy conversation starter, working in the NBA, and then you've run some successful businesses. How does the subject of faith and your specific faith being Catholic, how do you incorporate that into the work that you do, even if you're working with someone who is maybe not of the same faith?
For me, it always has to come from like a strong place of discernment, and I think really understanding how to flex that muscle with the Lord a little bit, and like be willing to also look dumb, stupid, or humiliated at times when it comes to discernment as well too. Because again, I like to believe that I've gotten good at discernment, but it doesn't mean I'm perfect and never will be perfect. And I make a lot of mistakes when it comes to, holy decision making, as it will. But I like to, think that me and the Lord have grown a lot over the last 5 years in my reversion back to the faith. And it really comes to that, because I think when you just lead with our faith to anybody that has either fallen away, has never been introduced to it, or has been introduced to it in a wrong way, it's so easy for us to push them away. Because, and granted, our faith should be our identity, but I think whenever approaching somebody, of the same faith, of, Protestant or agnostic, atheist, whatever it is, when you come off that hard or harsh in a sense, like people, like you're trying to sell people on you at the end of the day, and it has to be really casual. And so I think for me, I always want to find some type of commonality, and if it doesn't exist, trying to even almost create it in some way, shape, or form. And I think the Lord has given me a great ability to be able to do that with a lot of people of a lot of different denominations and walks of life, and just being able to understand, how can I meet this person where they're at? How can I help them, get to where the Lord has called me to help them get to, and being able to plant that seed and trust that he's going to be the one that's going to water that over time. And then from there, discern, what does he want of this relationship? If he's introducing me to someone, there's something that he wants for me to plant a seed here so that he can continue to water it. And so I think the more that we can look, at our agnostic, atheist, Protestant brothers and sisters and say, how do we meet them where they're at? How do we not push anything on it, but allow it to organically come? Because also for me as a salesperson, it's hard not to try to hard sell somebody on our faith or, for what I believe. But also for me, I put myself 5 years ago, whenever I had kind of walked away from the Catholic faith and was on this reversion back. If somebody would have tried hard selling me on Catholicism after growing up in it my entire life, I would have tuned out completely. So for me, I just wanted to come from, let my relationship with Christ do kind of the talking through my actions and how I live. And from that, a lot of people would recognize, like, hey, I see that you're going to daily mass, or hey, I see, you talk about listening and hearing the Lord like this. Can you break that down for me? Or you took this from scripture, or I see what you've done in your relationship with Kylie and how you guys have built this. Like, how did that all come to fruition? So I think from a lot of life's actions and things that have come from it, that has done a lot of the kind of talking, if you will, for me, in the sense of how I can meet those individuals where they're at and help them get to where the Lord is calling them to be.
And Kylie, I'm going to bring this to you. How important is it for you to work with people of a similar faith, and how do you introduce it? Especially when because you're getting into more of that leaper. I almost want to say more of the life coaching, so that becomes a little bit more important in that realm. How do you bring it up? Derek, I love the way you do it. It's involving discernment and really looking for why is this person here, and making it about them, which is so important. How about, what's your approach, Kylie?
Well, it's been different, because I think with real estate agents versus, we work for a Catholic company versus Beyond the Veil, where we're kind of like leading with Catholicism, you're naturally like more attracting that Catholic crowd. So it doesn't make it as challenging. But I'll say, like, with the real estate agents is the most interesting piece of it, because truth is truth regardless. Right. And so if you can speak that language. So sometimes my approach is always to like speak the truth of God without necessarily talking about God first. Right.
Fantastic. Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, if you're looking at your life order, especially some of the agents that, whether they put work first or family first, and it's like, okay, well, if you're having an incongruency in your life, why are you having an incongruency? Like, what's feeling off? And so kind of working through that, and then trying to speak the truth from this. Well, this is why you're naturally inclined to want to go this way, right? Or this is why you're feeling something's feeling out of whack. And I always, it's never about like work-life balance as much as it is like work-life order. And when you start to put in work-life order, people kind of understand why things have to go the way they need to go with the faith.
No, so that makes a lot of sense. I want to ask you guys, being Beyond the Veil coaching, who is your ideal client? Who is it that you absolutely love to work with? So as people are listening, and they want to maybe get in touch with you and work with you, or they know someone that they think could benefit from working with you, tell us about who you love to help and how do those people get a hold of you? Where do you find them? Give us a ideal client profile.
Yeah, I'll give you kind of ours and mine, and then Kylie could share hers, because I know her and I also enjoy coaching specific individuals ourselves as well too, and who we really kind of crave spending that time with. And so for me and Beyond the Veil, like, we really target those that are between 25 to 35 that are Catholic entrepreneurs or autonomous professionals. And by autonomous, just those individuals that have freedom within their routine that isn't a typical 9 to 5. So real estate agents, brokers, insurance professionals, individuals that are in different sales and high performing sales roles. And so that's kind of like our ideal client profile of who we market to in the Catholic space. And then from there, it's kind of who I also enjoy serving the most and getting a little bit more detailed. Those business owners that are Catholic, that are making, kind of starting or mid 6 figures within their Catholic company, whatever it may be. And so, because one thing that I really look at is understanding, is the person in front of me, do they have a growth mindset? That's really the number one key I always want to look at, whether they make $40K a year or $400,000 a year. Do they have a growth mindset, and are they willing to invest in themselves to get to where the Lord is calling them to be? So for me, that's who, we kind of target from a marketing standpoint, even though we do serve, our Protestant brothers and sisters as well too. But I really enjoy working with the high performers and helping them get from point A to B. And then I know Kylie has her own cup of tea that she enjoys working with as well through Beyond the Veil.
Awesome. Kylie, why don't you tell us who do you love to work with?
I mean, I would say one thing with coaching people for a long time, the one ingredient you feel like a person has to have is they have to want to grow, because you can't force someone to grow who doesn't want to grow. We are not in control of changing people's behavior, Right. We can only plant seeds and help you along the way. And so somebody has to really want to grow in a specific area. So I would say that I generally prefer people who, I gravitate to people who have more of mindset struggles than Derek does. Derek is more of the practical, tactical, move you forward. Whereas I'm if somebody has an internal war that they're dealing with, is usually where I like to come in. That's my favorite kind of ground to work on.
Yeah. And so yeah, you're meeting them and helping them overcome those mindset issues that they might be having. Versus Derek's going to be more tactical and work with them on, okay, here's what you need to do. And Derek, you mentioned something that's really interesting. So you work with people, you get them started, you go through the assessments that you take them through, and then they get some daily coaching, right? Which, for someone like me who is self-diagnosed and definitely proven ADHD, that daily coaching makes a big difference. So how does that work? And if somebody's working with you, you mentioned the on-ramp, onboarding process, and then they get to the coaching. What's an onboarding look like for you guys?
Yeah, so it's actually something that we put together based on our own coaching experience as well, of what we've gotten and also what we haven't received as well. And for me, if you actually look out in the world of, high performance coaching, in a sense, there's not a lot of people that are meeting their clients daily. And so I wanted to always kind of overperform in the sense of value in what we delivered in that way. And so I always wanted people to come to and say, I've never received this level of coaching and intensity before. And again, it's a selling point, but it's also something that scares a lot of people away, because the one thing with accountability is, you have to be very vulnerable. And a lot of people don't want to let somebody else into that, to say, hey, I'm messing up in X, Y, and Z areas of my life, and I want to let you into that so you could help me in that area. So from there, we wanted to understand, what can this process look like, of where, we could onboard somebody and bring them through this process and kind of slowly move them into it, but also allow them to be very aggressive with achieving their goals that the Lord has set out for them. So whenever somebody signs on with us, we go through a prayer and discernment process after a sales call. We then have a 45 to 60 minute onboarding call where we actually like break down, this is what the next 3, 6, 9, or 12 months, depending on the length of their coaching journey with them, is going to look like. And we break it down week by week and month by month, so they could see the exact kind of blueprint and roadmap of what that looks like. And then we also have, and I let people know, there is an ability to be agile and pivot with the Lord if needed. There's some people where business needs change, family dynamics change, finances change, and they have to make a pivot somewhere else. So also being able to be agile with the Lord as well. And then on a daily basis and weekly as well, we'll have a weekly strategy call where we sit down with them. And then we also do daily accountability. So if, we have a Catholic real estate agent that's struggling with making cold calls, we'll meet with them at 9 a.m. to check in to say, hey, what's the plan for today? Make X amount of cold calls, set X amount of appointments, make X amount of deals this week. And then from there, we'll check in with them during the call block, after it, make sure they hit. And if they didn't, be able to walk through that and understand why they didn't, and then get better for the next day. And again, it can be very intensive as well. So, for, individuals, as you mentioned, like yourself, that may have ADHD or, ADD or struggle in a specific area, like it can help somebody stay on track and be very kind of regimented with having somebody kind of on your back saying, hey, this is what you said you're going to do. This is how we follow through with it. And here's the outcome. And so we always wanted to be able to provide that type of value, because I never got it in coaching, and I wanted to be able to provide that because I can understand how beneficial it is to have somebody kind of watching your back 24/7, 365.
No, that's really good. Guys, we're running out of time here, and I want to make sure and ask these questions. So what's the biggest difference that you see in yourself? If I met you 5 years ago versus today, what's different about Derek and what's different about Kylie?
I'll let you go first, Kylie.
Oh man. I hope a lot. I hope a lot. I'm definitely a lot more confident in the gifts that God has given me than I was 5 years ago. Derek actually helped me a lot with that when we coached together at YCP. But I think I was always loving coaching, and even my faith too. But I think I always question, like, am I helping this person? Am I doing a good job? Am I adding value? Am I, like a lot of internal questioning, where he was like, he would be very clear with me. You're really good at this. You're really good at this. You're really good at this. And so it started to make me feel more confident in the gifts that God had given me. So then I can be more peaceful when I'm actually coaching and realize that it is about them. It's not about me and how I'm feeling about the situation. It is really about them and giving them the gifts that God gave me.
That's really good. How about you, Derek?
For me, 5 years ago is at the point where I was getting ready to like start my reversion back to the faith. And I think a lot of the areas I worked on with the Lord and also my spiritual director was me like not focusing on myself and what Derek does, and like checking my pride and ego at the door. That was always the biggest thing that held me back for so long. And so for me, living a life of joy, as Mother Teresa would say, of Jesus first, others second, and yourself third. I think that's probably the biggest change that I have strived to make over the last 5 years, of where I was all about myself and I was the hottest topic in any room I would ever walk into, to now where I try to put others, in front of me and let the spotlight be on others and not just myself, and also understand the Lord is the CEO of Beyond the Veil, and I'm just a lowly peasant that's doing what he asked me to do and being obedient to that and trying to hold up that posture as much as I can. And I still fail a lot, as Kylie can attest to, but that's what I try to really hold up as well, and that in hope and marriage as well too.
It's your nature. It's our nature. Yeah. So sometimes we have to fight our nature a little bit, but no, I love that. I love that acronym for joy: Jesus, others, then yourself. I just finished reading a book by Matthew Kelly, Slowing Down to the Speed of Joy. And I love the thought of Jesus, others, then yourself. That is a really cool way to kind of make, let's end the show on that note. You guys have been fantastic guests. I know I want to have you back on. I can't wait to meet you in person. And Derek, it's so cool that you have been in New Mexico. You were on a retreat here. Now we're in Albuquerque. I'm in Albuquerque, New Mexico. you guys are in Pittsburgh. I used to do a lot of work in Pittsburgh in the healthcare sector when I was a national sales director for a major medical device company. And so we had lots of accounts there, UPMC, and we worked a lot with people in Pittsburgh. So I'm either going to come out to Pittsburgh or you guys are going to have to come out to Albuquerque. I definitely want to keep in touch with Beyond the Veil Coaching, what you guys are doing. I want to encourage our listeners to definitely comment, definitely like the episode. Let us know what you thought. If you learned something new today, definitely let us know and comment. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We're the Lead Different podcast, and we're so excited to have had Derek and Kylie on today. Guys, thank you for bringing value to the Why Not Leadership audience, to our Lead Different podcast today. And we're looking forward to following up with you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks so much,
Thank you,
Dan.
This is Lead Different.
Subscribe now. Discover a new era of leadership. Lead different because great leaders change the world.